Good morning, and thank you for having me here this morning. Thank you for all showing up, and thank you, mahalo to the chamber for having me come in. They told me before I started to know my place because I was just the lead-off, the warm-up act for the two internet guys, because my whole world is about physical branding, if you will, traditional print physical branding. There's actually one of my clients' pieces that we design from front to back cover, the Luxury Home Magazine, so you're in the right place. It's not a real estate seminar, okay, people? But I brought that because I really, really love physical stuff, print, physical design, and that's the world of branding I came in, even though I played very much in the mainland in my background in the digital and interactive world. But you're going to hear amply from those two. So I'm kind of the lead-in, and as Lebu told me, you're the foundation. The brand is the foundation for the pieces that we then take and express online. So let me see if I can get... Now my PowerPoint presentation, and you've all been in them before, has about 100 megabytes worth of information. And we're all going to get through every single slide today. I'm kidding. So before we talk, let's talk story about branding a little bit. I want to tell you a story about cookies, okay? And you're like, what the heck does cookies have to do with branding? In fact, it has everything to do with it. Wow, you're a perfect lead-in. I'm going to hand these around. These are for you to take one or two, or make sure everybody at least gets one. There's plenty of this to go around. Do you guys know where these are from? Anybody know this brand whatsoever? Lebu, can you help me just to get it going down to the end of the group? There's dark, there's white, and there's milk chocolate, so there's plenty. So Big Island candies, right? Very interesting story about cookies, and I'll get to Big Island candies in a second. When I was in San Francisco running a design group that focused on packaging, one of our clients was Mrs. Fields. Everybody familiar with Mrs. Fields, right? And Mrs. Fields had started off as a brand in the malls, right? And the kiosk and things. And their big deal about their brand was that their cookies were homemade or fresh baked, right? And you could actually smell them when you went in and all this kind of stuff, right? And it was this huge. Mrs. Fields had started this, making great cookies in her kitchen, and had started this brand, and it kind of like just took off before the Nestle's and everybody got into kind of the retail cookie thing, right? So her company had come to us, we did this beautiful design, et cetera, and it was to take the cookies from the mall experience, where they're fresh baked, you can see the ovens, and then take that into the larger retail environment, supermarkets and things of that sort, right? The big holy grail, I guess, for cookies, though, is the convenience stores, all of the gas grocery stores and that kind of thing, right? So when they went out to the grocery stores, this was a little side piece, they put these in, right? They just put those right up front, and they came back and they said, hey, these cookies are not selling as well as the ones that we have in the supermarket. What's up with that? What's up with that, folks? You guys are going to have to, you're all branders of your own brand, personally or whoever you work with. So I'm going to ask you questions.
It looks like you took it out of the bag and just sat it up there.
Okay, pretty obvious what it is, right? Because they thought, hey, just the name Mrs. Fields is going to be attractive and seductive enough to get people to equate the Mrs. Fields experience they had at the mall with the Mrs. Fields experience that this is going to provide to them in this package at the Gas and Go, right? Okay, got it. Pretty simple. Hey, why don't we take the brand expression, carry it across to the package? Hey, that's a nice concept. Cookie sales skyrocketed when they did this in the convenience stores. They tracked it, huge uptake, right? All the people that love Mrs. Fields that didn't get to the mall, putting gas in, buying individually packages of cookie pickers. This now kind of looked like the Mrs. Fields looked, and theoretically it was going to be that kind of fresh baked cookie experience, right? The cookies were going to be awesome. You track after the things roll out into the marketplace, a few weeks after the marketplace is saturated, penetrated, sales tanked, fell off the chart. Why do you think that might be? looks good, looks the same, looks tasty, looks appetizing. Any problem? In the convenience stores, the cookies have got to last much longer. They got to have like a half-life of 10,000 years, right? Like a Twinkie, okay? So when nuclear Armageddon comes and you break into one of these places, there's Twinkies, Ho-Hos, and whatever the cookies are that are individually packaged. That doesn't necessarily lend itself to kind of like the fresh-based experience, because in the mall, when those cookies were not selling, the next day they would, maybe sell them in halves or, they had to be thrown away. They were not able to be sold, right? These things did not have the luxury of that delivery experience. There was a metallic taste in the cookies. Something went wrong in the ingredient, in the mixing, and people would eat them and be like, oh my God, there's something that tastes metal, like after you go to the dent or something, they put the fillings in, right? The sales tanked. They checked that out, they figured it out, they recalibrated the mixture, they put them back out, and sales took off again, and people could, But there was really a challenge there, because it took a while to get people's sense of attraction back to where they might trust the brand again, right? And they had to do a lot of marketing and promotion, new formulation, all of that kind of stuff, right? So branding is an interesting thing. It's something that, as you can see, is not just about what you present and what you say you're about. It's what you deliver, and what you deliver consistently over time. Now, since that's the punchline, we're pretty much done with the presentation, and we can go on. So let's talk about the reason you folks are probably here is to figure out, except for getting to the internet fellas after, figure out, what does branding have to do with my business? Is there something in what's going to be said today that I can take away from this thing to help my business be more successful in some way, right? And that's like more profit, more revenue, more customers, more market share, whatever those reasons are. Well, as we know, there's many components to business success, right? And I'm going to talk about just the stuff in the red category, and probably at a certain level, because we're not going to have a whole long session today, or we might, as the case might be. If Chris doesn't show up, both Labu and I are going to cover the whole morning. But you've got products, the services, and the staff. We're going to touch on that, but that's not really my kuleana to potentially help you guys with, right? It makes sense that Mrs. Fields would understand that the cookie in the convenience store just somewhat tastes pretty good, right? The consistency of that experience should exist there, right? But our kuleana was just to make sure that the brand consistently carried across, and then it's the company's responsibility to make sure that the product delivered, and that the service is delivered, and that the staff, the people representing that, right, were in alignment with that brand promise, if you will. Where you offer it, both physical and then online, right? And increasingly, that's becoming a huge part of it. Oh, okay, so that gets us back to Big Island Candies. Does anyone really know the story behind, and the reason I hand out Big Island Candies is because it's like one of my brand favorite. These people do a good cookie, right? And if you get around to it, you can tell me if that you feel like that's the case for yourself. They also do a really fantastic job, and I got to be proud of the Hilo brands, coming home, the Hilo brands, the Big Island brands that are really doing a great job in terms of branding. They have a gentleman there who I know, and his team does a wonderful job of design when you go in the store and everything, right? And it's a really interesting model because it speaks exactly to Labu and Chris that are going to talk later about what the internet can do for your business. And there's other folks in here too, actually, that I want to note. Tom Trends from HighNet Associates is an online marketing consultant and guru, so he's here. So these guys are going to check me if there's anything that I say that's not congruent with the internet expression. And David Tyerman is here from World Famous Brands, and this guy is a master at creating a core brand identity, and then we carry something like that through to expression. So, gentlemen, thank you for being here, and keep me on point. So Big Island Candies is a brilliant, brilliant story, not only about branding, but about how the way the brand exists and shows up in the physical space and the online space. Okay, so the company was started by a gentleman on the Big Island named Alan, and I remember this when I was growing up. Many years, they started in a little store, and he was hand dipping the cookies and all of that, and it grew because the product was awesome. He didn't have all the fancy packaging and all that kind of stuff, but the product was unbelievable, and word of mouth would spread, right? And this was all pre-internet days, so the only place you could buy the cookie was to actually go to the site that they were dipping them right in the back room, okay? So it literally was that homegrown experience. As the thing grew, more people picked up on it. It really became something. And then he grew into grow stores. He leveraged his home 3 times. Refinanced his home, was on the verge of bankruptcy, I believe, 3 times before the company kind of turned the corner. And there's a couple of reasons that company turned the corner, and it's probably one of the largest grossing revenue companies from the Big Island right now, and one of the best, I think, brand examples where they're doing a great job with not only the product, but the packaging and the branding, and then kind of carrying it through. 2 things. One was the kind of the start of the internet, right? Because before you'd have to physically come to the Big Island and go to the place and buy the cookie. Kind of like, remember back when Coors beer was only available in Colorado, and they had the big story about the vice president carrying cases back in Air Force One or whatever, and then it went national distribution. You had to physically come to the Big Island, buy the cookies, or know somebody who would send it to you, right? Or you could call or fax, 1-800 number you could fax, that's cool. With the start of the internet, he can actually put up a site that you can now virtually experience that, right? And extend that out, and I won't go into that world, that'll be talked about later, right? But the other key is that he figured out how to get people to become brand evangelists for his product. The tour buses, the Japanese tour buses and the visitors tour buses pull up in front of that place, if you watch it, consistently all day long. Busloads of people go in. All of those busloads of people go back home to where they come from Japan, from Korea, from Latin America, and they're now able to order the product and turn other people onto the product. It's huge. He still only sells the cookies at the factory. There's maybe a 1,200 square foot retail space in front of the factory, glass windows. You go in, you're buying the stuff, and you're looking at it being made by the people in the back, still hand dipping cookies, right? Brilliant, because to those people that are coming in, and these are not inexpensive cookies, right, by any means. These are pretty pricey items, especially for a local purchasing consideration. Those people want something luxury, want something handcrafted. The packaging is beautiful if you take a look at the brochures and things, right? But you can actually see where they're being made. How valuable is that connection with the big screen glass windows? How valuable is that connection to the actual experience of what those people are taking back, that they're taking back something special, handcrafted? And when you're doing omiyage, right, that's very important to have that facet to it. So keep that kind of in mind as you're looking at how branding relates to your business. It's not just about the stuff that someone like I would do in terms of making your expression beautiful and consistent and all the pieces fit. It's what really are you delivering? What is the essence? And as David would say, how does that essence turn into the experience, okay? That's the key, and let's get into that. So all these things, I'm going to focus on the brand and then the brand marketing part of that. And the brand marketing part of it is inclusive of any individual products or services that you might have. Always nice, as a Virgo, I always like to start with definitions. What does the dictionary say about the things that you are then going to create your own description for, right? And I'm not going to read these through, but take a look at that and see which words pop out to you when you talk about brand, because all of us talk about it and probably mean something slightly different depending upon the perspective that we have, right? I personally like the one that involves the hot iron or something. No, I'm kidding. That's the Parker Ranch thing coming in, right? Isn't it interesting to note it says a sign or mark of disgrace, infamy, or notoriety? There you go. But it's, it's a name, it's a trademark, a product. Identification is really the key thing to take away here, right? This is another one. Everyone talks about branding as, oh, you got a logo, I got a logo, I need a logo, our logo's not so nice, I got to make a new logo. And it's really interesting because what the logo is really just a graphical representation of whatever it is that you're trying to brand or identify, right? There's something bigger here that folks like David and I try to get people to understand, and that is your brand is about what your core brand identity is. What does it, what does it stand for? What are the values? What's the essence? And then visually and verbally and experientially, how do you encapsulate that with a little piece of shorthand, right? So that somehow over time and over experience, people emotionally cue into something that gets released, the dopamines that get released in their brain, an emotional connection when they see that visual representation of it. So logo is just one piece of it. It's a much broader thing. Identity, take a look at that. What words come up when you kind of take a look at brand identity, core brand identity. It's individuality, uniqueness, distinctiveness, characteristic, self, character, personality. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, we're talking about human kind of traits and human kind of words here equated to something that's what was once only put on cows and field animals, right? Branding, the use of advertising, distinctive design, love that, and other means, and we all know what those other means are starting to extend into in terms of branding and cutting through the clutter in the physical world, right? To make customers or your customers, prospects, associate a specific product, manufacturer, company, et cetera, et cetera. Marketing is the selling of those products or services. Advertising, public promotion. I'm moving on. Promotion, encouragement for activity, an interesting right? An advancement in position to a higher place, raising the vibration, if you will. And brand identity had the same definition as brand. So this little word I coined, brandality, is a combination of identity and personality. What is your brandality? What is your brand personality? What is its identity? Think about those things first before you start looking at designing something and then extending that design onward. So the metaphor I love to use, because I try to put pictures to everything we talk about, because when you leave today, you're probably going to remember one thing. Wow, those Big Island cookies were awesome. I wonder what the URL was so I could go order more. If that's all you took away from this morning's meeting, folks, you got it. You can leave now. That is going to be the essence of what this is going to be about. What is that experience when you forget everything else? What is that experience of your brand that people remember and take away with, okay? I told Labu that I sometimes don't keep on track and talk about what's on screen, and that's so true. I love these guys. Who else is with me on the M&Ms, whether you're a peanut fan or not? But I'm only peanuts. I do Coke, I don't do Pepsi. I do peanut M&Ms, I don't touch the other ones. It's like kryptonite. Don't even show them to me. Same company, different brand, I'm the yellow guy. What's unique about Mars candy? Those weird, eccentric billionaire guys that like Howard Hughes in Vegas that no one knows. You know about, have you read anything about Mars, the company, the candy company? Totally Willy Wonka. By the way, that's where the movie was based, was off these cats, right? Two brothers, really strange, billionaires. No picture exists of them. Interpol probably doesn't have a picture of them. What's interesting about what they do? Hershey's does it too. There's a clue. What is interesting about what they do with their product, their brand, especially M&Ms? Each one is what? When you open a package, each M&M has what on it? The M&M, right? Now, why would you need to do that? Isn't that kind of redundant? Aren't we already buying the darn package? I got it. Why on every single one are you reminding me that it's an M&M? What, do you think I'm stupid? I got it. I chose you out of the whole lineup. I got your yellow, your caterpillar yellow. I got it. Or the brown or whatever, right? And now they have an extension to almonds and all those kinds of things, right? Isn't that cost a little bit more to put the M&M on each one? If you study manufacturing, you understand each one of those things has got to be stamped. I mean, there's not a lot of elves there with a little marker doing that, right? They have to be stamped. That's another process they add in. Other companies don't necessarily do that. Hershey's, when you eat a Hershey bar, right, has Hershey in the bar itself, right? Because these brands understand one thing that's a little bit metaphysical, that's a little bit out there. Because with every bite of their product, you're making them you. Whoa, let me think about that. You guys get that? Yeah. Now, that's with products we consume and stuff. You're like, WavenDean, that's only with food products and stuff you consume. Is it really? In a different level, when you think about branding, you are consuming or paying or making a choice with your hard-earned life energy, which you get, you know, for me, like $10 an hour for, right? That's a joke, hopefully. Whatever it is, you're paying life energy because you're working a job, you're doing something, you're getting an equal exchange. You're buying this with whatever that costs, and you're saying to them, I'm going to give you so much life energy, it's $1. I'm going to buy that, and I'm going to consume you. And your brand becomes me. And so with each bite, they're reminding you about the relationship that you establish, and they're reinforcing the relationship with you, right? Each individual one of those cookies you ate was individually wrapped. Now that's nice. That's a nice thing. That's very Japanese. You know, it's very Asian, right? But when you're opening that, you're going through a physical act of being conscious about what you're consuming, each one, right? Take these best practices, people, when you look around you, and these guys spend hundreds of millions, maybe billions over time, just like Nike, and everybody's like, I want my brand to be Nike, right? Okay, give me your checkbook and we'll get your brand to be Nike. But there's one thing that you can do, and you can emulate, and you can copy, and you can plagiarize. And take a look at what best practices are from the world's best brands and figure out why they do the things they do consciously. Look at that stuff. How can you brand each of the individual pieces of your offering, whether it's product or services? I don't care if you're in a nonprofit, you're manufacturing, ball bearings or whatever the case might be. How can you take these branding best practices and apply them to you appropriately within your financial structure, within your mom and pop operation, or whatever the case might be, right? Because they're there, line, waiting, they're a $100 bill waiting for us to pick them up. Stop and take the time to pick it up. So when you think about I'm going to give you pictures and images rather than talk to you about a lot of definitions. So that was the test up front. You got that. That was the dictionary stuff. When you look at branding, think about the core brand identity as being the acorn. Think about that being your brand. And then what that acorn grows into, theoretically, it's going to grow into a what? Oak tree? That's right. Personally, I like macadamia nuts and mangoes, but they weren't as pretty as the acorn. So we went with the acorn. Now, here's an interesting one. I'm going metaphysical again on you. I love this guy. He's in my brochure. Never saw it in real life, but I got a little statue in plastic, so that's as close as I get. Is that kind of true, you think? When you think about it, is the tree that you want to grow when you think about your brand, all the success you want to have with your brand, all the services, all the good stuff you want to do for people, whatever your spiritual or financial or reason for being with your brand, why is it in the marketplace, right? When you think about that being the oak tree that you want to grow and the benefits you want to provide, you have to come from that place back to figure out what the acorn is that'll get you to that place. An interesting thing is when people come to me and talk about, hey, I want to redo my brand, I want to refresh my logo, I don't like it, it looks dated. I don't start talking to them at all about design. I start talking to them about where are you at right now with your business, what's going on, and why would you want to make a change if you've got to this level of success with this brand? Unless we want to jump a chasm that exists because you want that brand to go somewhere else, talk to a different group of people, achieve a different level of success, vibrationally make a move in the marketplace. Unless you want to do that, you shouldn't pay us to refresh your yellow. It's not going to do it because it's not going to be backed up with the right kind of commitment to deliver what it takes to deliver and achieve that level of success. And brand can't do it alone. There's all those other components to success, business success. Brand is one piece. It's a key piece. It's a foundation piece, as Lebu said, right? But it's not the whole enchilada. So I love this metaphor because when you think about that eventuality, the seed of that is what you want to capture in your brand expression, my Kuleana, and then carry it through with other people that come to the party for your online expression, your customer service, your financials, your pricing, your public relations, all of those kinds of things, right? Okay, I'm not going to read that through. I just wanted to scare you. But take a look at kind of that brandality, and what does that do if you really key on that? There's a 1+1 factor that happens. That's a multiplier effect. It's got to be authentic, people. It's got to be real. You got to appeal to the mind and the heart, right? You don't win wars. You got to get the heart part of it in there. And when I look at a core brand identity or core brand icon, those are the kind of things that I'm looking at doing, right? How do those individual elements set the stage, set the tone for the customer experience to come? How do you capture the seed or the essence of all of those things that are the oak tree representing where you want to go, your values, the promises, the customer expectation? How do you try to capture all of those things in a little shorthand way, right? And it's a foundation to build your brand expression upon. If you guys have ever been in construction, you know that when you build a single-story structure, it's like all you need is about 6 inches of concrete and you're good to go. And then you have a couple of kids and stuff. It's like, whoa, let's add a second story. Can't do it. Foundation only 6 inches. You got to have an 8 to 12-inch foundation depending upon how many stories you want to add. Darn it, what if we had bought a bigger foundation when we put the one-story house, and then could we have, yeah, no problem, but now you got to move or lift the house and pour more concrete. You get the metaphor? If you really think about what that oak tree, mango tree, macadamia nut tree is that you want your brand to be, and don't think small, play big, play on a world stage, right? You got folks in here that have had world famous brands and help people create that kind of thing. Think that big. Because with the internet now, you can talk to people who can buy your cookies from China who never visited the Big Island now. Unbelievable stuff, right? So think big, build the foundation before, and plan to add on second, third, and fourth stories, okay? And build your brand identity, your core brand identity, to be able to support that. And here's the interesting one. If done correctly, that core brand identity can represent where the brand has or could or will evolve to from where it's been. So branding is that whole entire strategic process, creative process involved in creating your oak tree, right? And embodying the brand across all customer touch points. Lovely, all right? Visually, verbally, experientially, people. That's key. It's not just what it looks like and what taglines and slogans you have and descriptor lines. It's what is the experience that little thing is telling people you're going to potentially deliver to them consistently over time. Drive through McDonald's. Lovely experience. Next week, drive through McDonald's, lovely experience. I'm not going there for gourmet food. I'm going there for what McDonald's is superior at delivering. A consistent, relative within parameters experience that you know what you're going to get for this much money, right? And they're kicking Starbucks' behind in coffee. And we'll talk a little bit about that if we have exactly in Starbucks' home space, right? Very sad to me because I love Starbucks, very sad. So when we take a look at that brand expression, it creates the ripple effect to brand experience. It already starts out there, right? So take a look at what your essence, your mission, your purpose is. And like I said, folks, this is whether you're trying to monetize your own individual brand because you now find yourself resourced out, or what is the word, displaced or whatever. So now you're an independent contractor, right? You don't work for somebody, there's no 2-week paycheck, and you eat what you can kill as a hunter and those kinds of things, all the way to whether you work as at a nonprofit or whatever the case might be. You know, and I looked at the attendees list and I saw some of the folks were here from nonprofits, some were here were companies that you put in a little package, some were from services. And Michelle's like, you're halfway, Portuguese, get going. Okay. Core brand, goes through the essence, what's your unique value proposition, core brand icon, the identity, that visual, the little medallion piece, the brand expression, physical, digital, across all relevant consumer touch points. The product services, your Kuliana, what's the cost, the quality, consistency, and then the brand experience, the gestalt moment, emotional connection, relevance establishes over time. Oh, the highest level of this is when customers are so brand loyal that they become what are Apple people? Evangelists. Hello, Jimmy Farwell, same name, Apple people. What do Apple people do? Stand in line for 2 years to get the first iPhone. Holy smokes. What do they put in the water, the Kool-Aid, to make that happen, right? And I like to talk about brand marketing, even though that encompasses specific product or services marketing. Because, and here's another vibrational standpoint, it's putting your materials, information, strategic proximity to your customers, prospects, both internal and external people. Because if you're in a company, you have an internal constituency that you need to think about in your food chain and your ecosystem. And not just once, but consistently, appropriately over time, space, and place. Closing that vibrational gap that we talked about between where your potential customers are and where your products and services are showing up, right? And all of the branded marketing materials you're putting out there, including the website, are ambassadors, if you will. Like that little cookie package is carrying an experience potential of what you would get if you went to the mall and bought it from the fresh bake oven, right? And here's an interesting one I learned from David Wilkinson at Sandler Training, who's done some work here. Brilliant sales training stuff, right? Your materials in the marketplace also help to qualify what prospects you don't want to contact you because they're not at that place to afford your products or services. It's not right for them or whatever, and that's totally cool. People can go to our website and be like, hey, I don't like your style. I don't like your design sensibility. Then you know what? Don't work with us. because there's other people to choose, right? You want your materials to be authentic and to be to who you are. So when you show up to do this stuff, it's real. It's coming from an authentic place. You know, it's not put on. I mean, I wear this all the time. I'm going to a wedding tomorrow. My wife is, it's going to happen. Go to church. This is me. Half San Francisco, half Hawaii. You know what I mean? The mandals were a compromise. I couldn't do the slipper flip-flop thing. I had to upgrade that a little. Once your core brand identity is done, your acorn, and it captures all the right stuff, and you look at all the extensions and everything, you know, it's like the whole laundry list and probably stuff that I didn't even remember to put there, right? But it's like, think about everywhere your customers externally or prospects might touch your brand pieces, your ambassadors, and think about internally too, all your employees, your staff, the people you partner with, all the folks that are down the food chain from GM that provide all of the stuff that goes into making that Chevy car, right? The whole landscape of stuff, if you will, carried on out, right? And then what? We're done, right? No need work anymore. Got all good stuff, all set up, kick back, let the money roll in. Whew, it wasn't that easy. Brilliant new book about storytelling, because folks, at the bottom line, that's what you're really doing, is you're telling a story. And that, once you get the thing done, that monolithic thinking, it doesn't work in today's world anymore about branding. There's a refreshing, there's a new storytelling, there's a slight twist, there's a different way to do it. You know, you take your core stuff, but you express that out in ways that are appropriate to what's happening in the marketplace and what's happening in the economy and those things, the global situation, et cetera, et cetera. Let's take a look at brands that no longer exist, and you're probably familiar with a lot of these, right? We don't have to necessarily say anything about each one. Take a look at brands that no longer exist, have diminished relevance. Kind of shocking, some of those up there, right? Anybody think that any of those were not brands that have an emotional hit when you see them? Right? Positive or negative, no judgment, evil or not, no judgment, right? This one you can't see too well. Jordan, I guess, the guy that dunks the balls, right? It's interesting. How powerful is that brand now that he no longer does that thing? Or how powerful is Muhammad Ali's brand that he no longer does what he does? George Foreman, right? Not as successful as Muhammad Ali as a fighter, but pretty interesting what his brand has done. You probably grill a steak maybe on something George Foreman endorsed, right? He reinvented his brand story and his relevance when the context of what his brand was established with was no longer necessarily relevant, because it was, we heard a couple weeks ago from the Graphics perspective, the generation that remembers the glory days of some of these brands no longer is the generation that's going to be in power, or the generation that has the disposable income, or the generation that is going to remake that brand. So George Foreman is a whole different guy to some people than, he was a fighter? He fought Muhammad Ali? The thriller in Manila, the Zaire, what? What are you talking about? Vietnam War? What's that, right? How powerful was the POW MIA one back in the 60s, if you're old enough like me to somewhat remember those times? Immensely powerful, immensely successful in what it was done to do. It was the wife of a downed fighter pilot who started that, right? And it got Nixon to the peace talks in Paris in 1973, before your time. Okay. USSR, the heck is that? Where's Kazakhstan, right? PeopleSoft, I just threw that one. So, brands that are on life support. Anybody want to challenge some of these? Some more than others, right? You just heard GM is going to get rid of my beloved Saturn. What? Pontiac. And Hilo Hattie. I shop there often. Not. Okay, brand disruption. Take a look at brands that are interacting like when on a billiard table with other brands and cause other brands to do something different. And it's really interesting because Starbucks, love, that's my virtual office, right? I don't have to maintain office space in Honolulu, meet a client, Starbucks. Hey, okay, but what did Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's do with the coffee quality for a buck? Your macadamia nut flavored coffee, and guess what? You can do it in your drive-thru. I know Starbucks is drive-thru, but if Starbucks tries to compete with McDonald's on convenience and ease purely, they'll get Trump. There's like 6,000 plus more outlets for McDonald's somewhere, 600,000, whatever the number is, right? Isn't it interesting that the old Walmart brand has moved to the new Walmart brand, and that you look at all this stuff? They're starting to look really Target-like. They now sell the iPhone. What? Very interesting. Walmart's like, okay, what is Target doing that's best practices? Is there anything there that we can't re-express and make part of the Walmart brand? And guess what? We got logistics to kick everyone's behind. We got stores all over the place. Bring it on, right? Take a look at what Apple did to Sony. One day Sony woke up after inventing portable music, the Walkman, if you remember that, with the cassettes and stuff. Sony was sleeping soundly, thinking, we got the world. Apple came in and they're like, hey, we got this Macintosh computer. It's got like 4% market share, right? We're going to go into the consumer goods things. We're going to do this thing called the iPod. We're going to reinvent the experience of what transportable music is all about, reinvent the experience, put the online piece, make the, all the stuff that happened behind the look and feel of the brand, all the business pieces to align that success to that oak tree to manifest, right? Sony woke up and they've never caught up, no matter what they do, and everybody said Apple was stupid. Intel had tried to make consumer devices before. HP had tried to make consumer devices before. How many of those technology companies have tried to bridge into the consumer world? Why has really only one of those companies created such loyalty, brand passion, brand evangelism, if you will, that people will be willing to wait overnight to get be the first one to get them? Steve Wozniak was in line, for God's sake. He had to wait to get one of the first iPhones. What Toyota and Honda have done to the big three is sad to me, really sad, because GM had the first and only full electric car with Saturn, the EV1, if you guys remember that. $500 on a lease. People love these cars so much, the movie stars and stuff. They didn't want to give them back. GM took them all back, scrapped them. Over a $1 billion investment. You know what GM did not get about what they had with the EV1? Because they said, well, it was unsuccessful. We spent $1 billion+ and they had a range of 50 miles or whatever. Well, folks, most people only drive 20 miles from around their home during the week anyway, right? They weren't saying that was the only car. It was like full electric. Took them all back, scrapped them. The Smithsonian, I think, has one, and their museum has one, which they probably have to auction on eBay now to make money, right, to add to their bailout. What did they miss about that product? It wasn't about an electric car. It was about the batteries. The batteries, folks. If GM had built that car, and we're now on their 6th generation of that car, these guys would look like goobers when they came out with the hybrid, because GM would have figured out how to make batteries that had a longer lifespan to it. They could have been the world's largest provider of batteries to those guys that wanted to come in and do full electric vehicles. Like Telsa, right, or Tesla, in Silicon Valley is showing GM that you take batteries out of a laptop and they're circular, right? So the efficiency is better. You don't, or square, what? When your brand's asleep, somebody is not asleep. Somebody is working to take that brand experience and that value proposition. What did Pixar do to Disney? Disney invented animated storytelling, invented it, just like Sony invented portable music. And until they came around and saw Toy Story and the little shorts that preceded, they were asleep at the wheel. This little multi-million-dollar investment that Steve Jobs was kicking a multi-billion-dollar behemoth's David and Goliath story, right? Brilliant. Now they brought him in. Those guys are running Disney Animation, and they're making unbelievable hits, right? With the latest one with the dog and the ball, the little gerbil and the ball and all that, that just came out, right? Nokia dominates the world market for cellular phones, right? Unbelievable saturation worldwide. They suck in the US. Their percentage and penetration is nothing here, right? They still kick Motorola's behind. Motorola just got rid of their cellular phone unit. Who invented cellular phones, people? Why? Because they had them in World War II. They were the big radios you see on the Rat Pack, the war movies from World War II, those big honking radios. Motorola. They invented that kind of transmission. They were asleep at the wheel. Somebody else came in and took their domination worldwide. I don't know who Google ousted or who eBay ousted or Amazon. Those are for you to fill in, because you get this and that's a quiz. You got to put that in there. This gentleman really started a different paradigm of looking at branding, right? Not just packaging. He said this, and this is quoted often. Products are built in the factory, but brands are built in the mind. Brilliant. He said that back in the 50s when his whole company was on a boat in the San Francisco Bay, right? Walter Landor. But the truth now, and all of us in branding know this, because when I put some of those brands in no longer exist, I could see the reaction in some of you for some of the things, the impact that that have. It's in your heart. It's an emotional connection, has always been an emotional connection with branding, right? This is an interesting one that I just pulled out. The guy's got his head branded. It's a fake one, like a henna one. Okay, it's not real. Something about Air New Zealand, and I love what the guy says here. And Barbara Pleadwell from Hastings and Pleadwell is here, and this kind of hits a little bit on the PR side of it, which is an awesome component to getting your brand message out. My job at the end of the day as a publicist is not to personally get PR for my client. Well, dude, I thought you said that's your business, and you're the PR man, right? No, my job is to get other people to do it, and if I get other people who want to talk about something on behalf of a client, and they go and recommend it to their friends during using their trust factor, then that is the very definition of social marketing. Aha. You need to get everybody else talking about your brand, not just you. That stuff is like kindling in the marketplace. It's just the two sticks to rub together to get the fire going. You need all the other people to come in like, fire? Fire? We were eating meat raw. Can I take one of those sticks and go back to my tribe and start one of those? Yeah, sure. Here's how you do it. It's real easy. Here's a stick. Here's a stick. Here's a stick. Pretty soon, everybody's cooking meat. Nobody remembers what it's like to eat meat raw, right? Unless you're a sushi restaurant. Do you guys have a tattoo? You don't have to answer. You don't have to show them. Take a look at this customer loyalty factor, right? We know that powerful brands foster passion and loyalty. They build up credit with the consumer like Coke did with Classic Coke and that whole debacle, right? People are like, you kind of forgive Coke. The Saturn brand is brilliant. The cars were junk. I was in San Francisco when Hal Riney was creating the Saturn brand and it started, right? You had people coming in every year to Tennessee to go to the factory and eat hot dogs and talk about their Saturns and stuff. And I'm like, please, this is not an Aston Martin, people. These cars are not that good. They're not the equal of a Toyota. But what was brilliant was that they knew that they could eventually, 20 years later, and then close the brand down, right? The product Saturn has now, awesome, unbelievable. They're pulling the European Opals over, rebranding them as Saturns, right? You're getting great reviews for quality. Now they have the product, they're gonna shut the brand off. Before, they focused totally on this, and they kind of had this. And guess what? People were still willing to forgive this because there was something to love about being part of this, right? There's something to love about being part of the Saturn tribe and clan. So would your customers wear your brand identity on a t-shirt, hat, or even get a tattoo of it? What's that guy's tattoo? Harley Davidson, right? You can see that a little bit on the edge. He's got a lot of other things, skull, crossbones, you know, he's got a whole genre going, but Harley fits right there in there with it, right? The difference between this guy and the guy with the head, they paid that guy to put Air New Zealand on his head, right? This guy probably didn't get paid by Harley Davidson to permanently brand himself as a brand ambassador. So what brands have customers who are brand evangelists that elicit that kind of passion? I just put a few out there that you may agree with. You may have other ones, whatever the case. But for most of us, we can agree these brands have something special, some kind of sweet sauce, some kind of special sauce, don't they? Something that makes people brand them, put them on there, go to extreme lengths to like interact with them, and then sometimes forgive them, as we all do as humans and brands, screw up and make mistakes and ship the wrong order and make, you know, reformulate your Coke, and, you know, your iPod doesn't work, so you go back to the Genius Bar, and right? So what brands am I these are my personal brand landscape. You can fill in with your own, right? Personally, I have a campaign going, if you want to sign, to get In-N-Out Burger to the islands, okay? I'll be passing the petition around. But think about this. Literally do this exercise and put on down, and you probably know them off the top of your head, what are the brands that I associate me with, right? What brands do I consume in whatever literal or figurative way that become my brand persona, that become part of me because I'm associated with them? What brands do I draft with? And the bigger question is, when your customers and or prospects, more importantly, make up their page for the brands that they have in their portfolio that they're associated with, does yours show up? And if not, why? And if not, why? What do you got to do to get it to that level so that they forgive you when you reformulate the Coke? So that they stand in line to get your product and service, that they don't qualify you based purely upon price, right? There's a lot of stuff in here I'm not going to get to because we're coming up to time. And it's kind of the process that we would go through to leap that chasm, if you will, between where your brand is now and where you might want to take it. There's all these little touch points that we could talk about. You know, you kick back, sit back and relax. Not quite. This is what we're trying to get to, the root structure. The key is how your customers feel about themselves when they're consuming your product. So that's why I remind them that they're eating my M&M, and hopefully they had a good experience and they come to the website. You know, Singapore Airlines, Virgin Airlines, there's a couple of top airline brands that are renowned if you fly internationally, especially first or upper class, right? If you've ever had that experience on someone else's expense report. You can appreciate the level of service and how you feel like you belong when you get there. There's a whole way of looking at how you create this brand loyalty and passion. And guess what? I was speaking to a college audience and I was like, what the heck am I going to say to these kids? Generation X's, right? Y's, right? Even, I mean, not even, right above millennium. What am I going to say to these kids about branding, right? And we talked about branding being the process of how you get in touch as dating. And whoa, the ears perked up. And I'm like, would you show up on a date unshaven, undressed? You know, all that kind of stuff. You know, just kind of the metaphor, and like got them to understand that branding is a process of seduction and engagement, right? Until you build up a track record and theoretically then decide if you want to take it to the next level, whatever that is. Can anyone tell me, and on the little gift factor, how much of us know that we have a significant other? The little delightful factor where you show up with something that's unexpected, not just because you're in the doghouse, right? Helps greatly for the brand experience. Whose brand is that? The woman with the little box. Can anyone see that color? Does anyone know what that brand is? Wow. How many women answered versus Tom Trends? Tiffany, if you look at their advertising, folks, doesn't even have to say the name. They don't even necessarily have to show jewelry coming out of the box. They don't even sometimes show jewelry in the ad. They show the color of the box. That's why you buy Tiffany. So I get the box, and I put stuff inside. Brand loyalty and passion, superior customer service, people. This is absolutely where we're getting down to it. Please, Michelle, give me like 5 more minutes. Okay, I'll wrap up. Institutionalize employee empowerment, programs to provide customer dissatisfaction resolution. Because powerful brands are built not when it's going great, but when you inevitably screw up with your customer and how you take care of them, okay? Make customer service and satisfaction one of the core brand values. Create delightful experiences. How many people have been on a plane where they baked the chocolate chip cookies and you're blown away, right? Ritz-Carlton, unbelievable story of how they institutionalize customer service. Each person you interact with has up to $2,000 of latitude without getting approval or signature to resolve your issue if you got a problem. Right now, right now. And other airlines, people are starting to take this tact in advertising. Look at all the other stuff they don't give you, and look at what we still maintain is a key part of the customer experience. I love these guys, right? I talked about that before. How many of you have a Starbucks Black Card? Even know what it is? The little program? You get this, you get 10% off, you get a special website, you get special promotional deals. I mean, there's a whole campaign for the people to go into this. And there's even a viral part built into it. There's these little 10% coupons you get in your portfolio, passport portfolio, as a Black Card member. And it's the cash card too, right? 10% coupon. Hey, Tom, are you a Black Card member? Oh, no. Oh, hey, here's 10% off your next Starbucks. Try it out. Whoa, wow. What did they just do to me for free? I paid them $25 to tell them everything about me, and now I'm acting like their sales guy. Their brand evangelist. I just paid them $25 for that and gave them all my information so they could market to me more effectively. Like on my birthday. And when Tazo Teas just came out over the holidays, they sent me a couple of free coupons for that. And guess what? I'm talking about it in my presentation to you. If you guys don't know about the Black Card, you better go check it out. What did I just do? How many times across the US or internationally is that happening for that? They better pay me $25 next time. I was at the Orchid, because I take this magazine around the Big Island, right? I was at the Orchid, the Fairmont Orchid, and I was coming in, and they had some company called ACS coming. And before I had gone, and there was GM, back when they had money to do offsites, right? And the guy with the truck, little individual coral rock that they created, the brand identity of those companies for the visiting sales convention or whatever. Did they need to do that? Is it cheesy? I don't know. But if you came in, would you feel special if you were part of that group? And even if you weren't, I took a picture of it, and the guy was like not a slave labor. He was pretty proud of the craftsmanship he took to put that, right? He put his love, time, and attention into it, and it came forth, and I'm like, hey, bro, can I get your picture? Yeah, sure. One little extra thing that they do, right? How much did that cost to make that happen? Put the website at the center of all your stuff. The gentleman after me are going to speak about this, eminently more skilled and talented to talk about that. Leverage a professionally designed one and do everything these guys tell you to do with your site. Talk to Lebu, talk to Tom, talk to Patrick, talk to the other folks in this room that are internet experts, and figure out, squeeze every last bit of juice out of that sponge. And if you're not, you're missing the hugest opportunity. I ran Google Analytics on my site. I had people from Uruguay coming. What? Who the heck's going to want a brand program in Uruguay, right? But it really kind of graphically proved to me that it is a worldwide marketplace that is potentially looking at your stuff at any time, and you're not, you're asleep, right? It takes a village. There's more than just this other pieces. There's a bunch of professionals, and many of them represented in this room, to really do the kind of success that we talk about with a Nike, with a Starbucks and all that. And you need those different facets, okay? I'm not going to tell you not. You need those different facets of public relations, internet marketing and expertise, establishing what your core brand identity is, your brandality. What is that acorn that then Amana can take and wrap it and make it, put your personality to, and then carry it through into all those materials, right? It takes a hooey, if you will. General recommendations for creating a brand. I'm going to skip this. You guys don't want to know about this. My time is up. That's done, right? But I broke down each of these pieces in this overall touch point matrix, right? Not meant to be necessarily comprehensive, and kind of gave bullet points, tips and tricks, things, ideas. And what I would love you guys to do is take this image on a piece of paper and break out each one of those circles. And then what's the whole wrapper here? Holistic customer brand experience. That's the holy grail, right? Take each one of those circles, break it out, and do a deep dive for your brand as it's appropriate, right? With resources, budget, circumstances, all of those kinds of things that are not able to be addressed this specifically. But look at what you're doing at print. Look at what you're doing with your customer experience. Look at what you're doing for direct marketing. All of those kinds of things. Events, promotions, all websites, online, customer experience is key. Last thing I'll end on, I went to lunch with a gal from Hana Ho, Tacey, who's the representative there. And a couple days after the lunch, because we talked story, I had a client that was potentially looking at Hana Ho, which is a beautiful magazine, right? For all of you have seen it. She sent me this. And I'm like, what the heck is this? I haven't seen one of these in a long, long time. What was it? Thank you note. And I called her right up and I was like, Tacey, what did you do? I mean, that's so old school. I just sent you an email saying thank you. Thanks for the follow-up, And she's like, no, I do that with every one of my customers. I write them a thank you note, for a meeting or whatever the case might be. What do you think's going to happen to her brand and to Hana Ho when I'm thinking about doing business with somebody to place my client's potential advertising with? Do you think she just moved closer to the heart to me for taking the time to do that? Yeah, an email is nice. You should do it. Price of entry. Acknowledge it, right? Reciprocate the energy. She went above and beyond. Next time I got to buy lunch. So this customer experience one, your staff is key. Train, motivate, inspire them, okay? You can lose good people in this economy real easy. Don't think that just because they got a job, if they're an A-level plus performer, they got to stay with you, right? Because the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that eventually make as many of their people the A-plus performers. And other companies will look at other companies and be like, okay, competitive advantage, the people, right? Brilliant article. If you haven't seen this week's Business Week, go and pick it up. Extreme customer service, okay? And there's a passage in here that I'd read to you from you guys. We can talk offline, but that article, that's me, family, kids, brands, mahalo. That's the wrap. Thank you very much.